All right, so Tesla's We Robot event just ended last night. We are the morning after now, and I wanted to share my quick thoughts on what I thought about the event. So, starting with what I really liked, which was the Cybercab itself. I thought the design of that was really impressive looking. I think the idea of it being like this cabin that doesn't have the steering wheel, that's this really cool kind of personal space, um, was really compelling. I think the fact that the doors actually opened the way they did was really sleek, and it just looks very futuristic. It kind of has like some Cybertruck vibes going on with the headlight, but also it was so compact, and I just really like the fact that it was just so sleek, very futuristic, and I think a two-seater is exactly perfect for what they need to launch for the majority of people who are going to want Robotaxi rides. So that was really cool. I think the inductive charging was a nice surprise. There were a few other, kind of small things like that that were nice to see. And then it was really nice seeing Optimus interacting with people so directly, kind of mingling among the crowd and serving people drinks. I thought that was very nice to see. It does seem like it was most likely teleoperated, so that's you could say maybe slightly disingenuous, or at least it's not surprising that it would be able to, in a teleoperated fashion, be able to serve you a drink. So I guess we don't know that for sure that was the case, but it seems very likely based on the videos that I've seen and kind of interacting with some people who were there at the event. And then I think the biggest news of all, the thing that I'm most excited about, was the announcement that they're actually going to be launching FSD unsupervised in Texas and California next year. This is the big event, the big kind of business changing business model, for lack of a better word. Where they're actually going to start having this really high margin, very high TAM revenue coming in when Tesla vehicles themselves can actually operate as robotaxis. They also confirmed that individual Tesla owners will be able to essentially put their cars in the Tesla network and operate as shepherds. There's nothing really surprising about that. Elon has really confirmed that several times in the past. But it was kind of nice to hear that the existing 3Y and even S and X and Robot and the Cybertruck, I'm blanking on that for some reason, will all be able to operate that way. Sounds like hardware 3 vehicles are probably not going to make the cut, at least initially. They're optimizing for hardware 4, and I think that makes sense. But given that I've got a hardware 3 vehicle, and I think there are other people who are just going to see the pace of improvement really a lot more apparent on hardware 4 vehicles, and hardware 3, I think, will continue to improve, but kind of remains to be seen exactly how far they can kind of push that needle in terms of getting it to the point where it actually can be unsupervised. I think that's a bit of a gray area, and probably leaning towards they won't be able to launch right now. So that was good. And then I liked hearing about the cost per mile. This is the big thing that I think is so misunderstood by Wall Street, is how they can effectively undercut everybody. And Elon mentioned, I think it was a 20-cent cost per mile or something like that. And you'll be able to essentially have great margins while undercutting other forms of transport. This is really compelling, and I think still not really understood, or at least believed by most Wall Street investors out there. On the negative side, I think they were extremely light on technical details. I thought we'd hear a lot more about what they're doing with Cortex and what they're doing with training, and maybe some commentary from Ashok on how they're going to go from where they are right now to this, unsupervised future in just a handful of months, really, if they're talking about launching next year. So that was, a bit of a disappointment, because I think where the bulls are seeing things, it's like, okay, they're launching Cortex, and they've got this massive fleet, and so the rate of improvement can be very high going forward, and like that makes sense on paper, but we really don't have anything to back that up with what we've seen in practice. V12 was definitely a big step change, but I think we're still in this territory where we've got miles per critical intervention at, kind of depends on what figure you believe, but call it somewhere between every 100 and 500 miles or so. So they need to be at least 1,000 times better than that to actually launch FSD unsupervised. And so the bulls will say, okay, well, like they just need a few orders of magnitude improvement, and they're right. And I think Tesla actually can do that. But will they is a very big question mark, because the bears will rightly say, yeah, they need to be 1,000 times better than they are right now. So there's no way they're going to be ready to launch next year. If V12 is actually as upgradable, and you can get these 6x improvements that Tesla was talking about with the new version V13 that's going to launch this month. Then you just stack up a couple of those 6x improvements, and boom, you're ready to go. But whether they can actually do that or not, they didn't provide any details that would kind of give confidence to the projection, other than just here's the date that we think we're going to launch. So that was a little bit disappointing. I would have loved to hear more about that. And then I'm also a bit disappointed that there was no rideshare app that was launched. So this is something that I've been advocating for a while. ARK Invest has been advocating for a while. I think there are all sorts of nuances with the rideshare business model of, okay, when you're picking up somebody, where do you pull over? Where do you want to drop them off? If they're, going to a specific airline, where's the airline, pick up and drop off? If there's like special signage for, say, a concert, and like rideshare needs to go over here. There's just, some very small kind of tweaks like that. And then also, I think you want to be training your riders to be using the Tesla app instead of, or at least as a complement to the Uber and the Lyft app. So trying to launch all that all at once is I think a riskier way to go. So the sooner they can launch that app, I think the better. So I was hoping they would launch that last night, and they didn't. And then finally, I was also hoping there'd be some sort of partnership announced. There was that, some kind of speculation that there could be something with McDonald's in the works. That obviously turned out to be a nothing burger. And there was also a bit of speculation, especially after the CEO of Stellantis was spotted at the event, that we could have an FSD licensing deal. So the fact that we don't have one yet just is a bit of optimism removed from the kind of short-term performance. So stock unsurprisingly falling after what we've seen. I think with where we are, I can very easily see a scenario where Tesla does have these, multiple 6x improvements, and 12 months from now, we're like, oh, it was so clear in retrospect that they were so close to actually delivering, and Elon actually said what they would do, and they finally delivered, and V12 was, this end-to-end was actually the step change that they needed, and from there it was just feeding more video compute in, and getting your compute cluster larger. And now that they've done that, it's not surprising that Tesla was able to get better than a human. So that's kind of one scenario, and I think if we find ourselves in that path, the stock is going to be absolutely crushing it over the next 12 to 18 months as it becomes apparent that Tesla has actually solved this. On the other hand, getting 1,000x improvement in your miles per critical intervention is no small task at all. And based on what we've seen historically, which is not, I don't think is the right way to look at it. But the pace of change that we've seen so far doesn't necessarily give a lot of comfort that we will see this massive step change in improvement in that metric going forward. So I've been saying this a lot lately, and I'm just going to reiterate it again here. I think the pace of improvement in that miles per critical intervention is the single most critical data point that we could be watching going forward, because it's going to give us a very clear indication, I think, about whether Tesla actually can deliver FSD unsupervised in calendar 2025. And if they can, man, I think we're kind of off to the races, and the stock is going to be, you want to get in before that, essentially. But that's very clearly not a given. And I think that's kind of why the stock is trading where it is right now, where you've got the bulls that can kind of see the path to FSD unsupervised. And then you've got the bears saying, hey, like, volumes are flat, margins are down year over year. SNX volumes are not doing so great. Cybertruck margins are not so great. And EV demand in general is weak outside China. So, there's a lot of reasons for bearishness if you don't believe the autonomy story. So I think we're in a bit of tug of war between the bulls and the bears right now. Where my head is, I think in the medium to long term, Tesla is going to solve the FSD unsupervised, and I think they will launch the Robotaxis. I think they will undercut pricing on other forms of transport, and Tesla's going to be a very great investment in the long term. Not financial advice, but that's just kind of where my head is when I'm looking at everything that they're doing. Will that happen in the next 12 months? I'm a little bit more skeptical about that. Like I said, I can see a path where it happens, but I wouldn't want to be, kind of going all in on call options or something like that, which has a very specific, kind of time component to that. So I think lots of stuff I liked. Would have liked to see a few more things in order to give a little bit more meat on the bone as to how they get some improvements. But overall, like the design, like the styling. And if you're in Tesla for the long haul, as I am, I think you're going to be happy. Just try not to time it too perfectly. So those are just some of my quick thoughts. Curious to hear in the comments what you're thinking. And if you're curious about what we do here at Rebellionaire, you can check us out at rebellionaire.com. And I'm Matt Smith, and we'll see you next time.